The Democrats are going to war. Using every trick in the book, the Democrats are pushing the allegations against Judge Kavanaugh in an effort to delay his confirmation until after the midterms. Joining the Democrats in their crusade against Brett Kavanaugh, the media are working hard to discredit the Supreme Court nominee who, until now, has led a career entirely unblemished by the slightest hint of wrongdoing. The spectacle began with the last-minute, miraculous discovery of a seemingly damning letter which alleges Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct when he was in high school. Senator Dianne Feinstein has been aware of the letter since July. If she truly believed the accusations were legitimate, why keep silent up until a week before Kavanaugh's confirmation? Many conservatives have criticized the Supreme Court as being too liberal in recent years, and it's vital to the interests of the left to keep it that way. In fact, it's only the leftist bias in the Supreme Court which allows Democrats to impose their globalist agenda of mass migration, open borders, and transnational corporate governance in the U.S.
We are one justice away from the Supreme Court making us subject to the World Court and to the United Nations and international law and giving up U.S. sovereignty.
For his part, President Trump has pledged to fix the ideological imbalances on the Supreme Court by nominating conservative justices. No wonder then that nominating Judge Kavanaugh is triggering a furious reaction among the Democrats who didn't hesitate to use character assassination tactics against the president's pick. The only way to avoid these accusations is to submit to the establishment, toe the party line, and abandon any conservative principles you have. And that's exactly what a lot of Republicans are doing. Both the Democrat machine and the mainstream Republicans represent one and the same political establishment in Washington and serve the same special interests.
No longer is this about Republican or Democrat control. It has truly been said there's not a dime's worth of difference between them.
If Republicans don't start to stand up and support their own nominees, conservative candidates in America won't have a chance. If a woman claims a man has harassed her, she doesn't need any other evidence because we have to believe these women. They're telling the truth because they're women, and men just need to shut up.
Guess who's perpetuating all of these kinds of actions? It's the men in this country, and I just want to say to the men in this country, just shut up and step up.
And if the accusation is all that's needed, then Republicans won't get any more nominees. That's it. And with that in mind, they're coming for Judge Kavanaugh.
Senate Democrats and their allies are trying to destroy a man's personal and professional life on the basis of decades-old allegations that are unsubstantiated and uncorroborated.
The Democrats have already celebrated a tactical victory by delaying the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh by weeks. And for Democrats like Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, Richard Blumenthal, and Kamala Harris, that's exactly the point. They're focused entirely on party politics, stirring up fears this nomination is actually a matter of life and death. In an open letter from Kavanaugh's alma mater, Yale Law School, hundreds of students, alumni, and teachers warned that if Trump's pick is confirmed, quote, people will die. But ignoring the hype and judging from his actual past, even the rational-minded Democrats agree that Kavanaugh is a qualified candidate. Liberal justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elena Kagan came out and denounced Democrats over what they called a highly partisan show. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas denounced the biased rhetoric as well, urging people to consider whether or not a nominee was honorable.
Honorable. If we could use that word about more people who are in public life, people who actually ask the questions at confirmation hearings instead of Spartacus, we use But as long as we're looking at our interests or scoring points or looking cute or being on TV, how do we keep a civil society?
That's 3 Supreme Court justices whose job it is to uphold the law of the land, enthusiastically supporting Kavanaugh. That doesn't matter to the Democrats, who seem to be trying to just score points against Republicans, especially after Obama's nominee Merrick Garland was shot down in 2016. But Supreme Court justices aren't the only ones backing Kavanaugh up, with 65 women who have known Kavanaugh all the way back to his high school coming forward to defend him with a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Following that, another group of over 75 women gathered in Washington in support of Kavanaugh.
The reason that we know that this allegation is false is because we know Brett Kavanaugh. And we believe, and the reason that there are more than 75 women standing up here today is because we know the man, we know his heart, and we have known him over every aspect of his life. And the charge leveled against him is inconsistent with every single thing we know about him.
Are over 100 women untrustworthy, but the foggy memory of one teenager from decades ago is? Supporting his innocence, Kavanaugh is releasing the only piece of hard evidence to date, his social calendar from back in high school. It's not proof positive against Ford, but it doesn't make any mention of the party she described, and it also shows that Kavanaugh was away on vacation for most of the summer of 1982. But for the Democrats, it was never really about the accusation to begin with. Looking at Ford's past, she's a Democrat activist and has been for a long time, even donating to the party and marching in rallies against President Trump's policies. And her attorney, Deborah Katz, is another Democrat activist and a major donor to the party, and has called people who work for President Trump miscreants. She even attended a resistance rally in 2017 and promised to fight back against Trump.
We're going to fight back. We are going to resist. We will not be silent.
And Deborah Katz has also held fundraisers for Democrat candidates with Christine Ford's other lawyer, Democrat activist Lisa Banks. Ford's also brought on a third lawyer, Michael Bromwich, who represented the anti-Trump former FBI director Andrew McCabe. These are the people representing Christine Ford, 3 hardcore Democrat activists. And it's worth noting, Ford's lawyer hasn't always stood up for the victims of sexual abuse. In fact, she's frequently defended the abusers. For years, Deborah Katz has made a career out of dismissing sexual harassment cases against liberal politicians and downplaying complaints against former President Bill Clinton and even Minnesota Senator Al Franken. Referring to Al Franken, Katz argued that because he wasn't a senator at the time, he shouldn't be held to the same standards. It's a far cry from her current accusations against Brett Kavanaugh, way before he ever held a public office. But as One America's Jack Posobiec explains, this kind of behavior is business as usual for Democrats, who have ignored major cases of sexual abuse against their own party for decades.
Well, many on the left endlessly speculate about thin, unproven allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Not so long ago, they did the same against President Trump. Yet they completely overlook the issues in their own party. While he was a student at Stanford University, Senator Cory Booker admitted to groping a girl's breast while he was at a New Year's Eve party. He wrote a column about it, titled "So Much for Stealing Second," where he completely admitted to committing sexual assault. Booker has never been called to be investigated by the Democrats. Back in August of this year, the son of a former girlfriend of Rep. Keith Ellison, who is the deputy chairman of the entire Democrat Party, alleged that the Minnesota congressman had abused his mother in the course of that relationship. Monahan said that he found a video on his mother Karen's computer showing Ellison forcefully trying to drag her off of a bed while swearing at her. Monahan has multiple witnesses, and another former girlfriend of Ellison has come forward with a 911 record. Yet there are no calls from the left to investigate him. Way back in 1969, Senator Ted Kennedy drunkenly drove a car off a bridge and left his passenger, the 28-year-old Mary Jo Kopechne, inside the vehicle. Kennedy swam free, left the scene, and did not report the accident to the police for 10 hours. Kopechne died hours later inside the fully submerged car. Kennedy admitted these facts in testimony. Kennedy pled guilty to fleeing the scene of the incident and was given no jail time. Ted Kennedy went on to serve in the U.S. Senate for 40 more years as a Democrat. And of course, the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, was credibly accused of committing the rape of Juanita Broderick, a former nursing home administrator, in 1978. NBC interviewed Juanita on January 20th, 1999, the day after Clinton was impeached. However, the interview only aired on February 24th, 35 days later, and after Clinton had been acquitted on February 12th. we'll never know what would have happened if they had run the interview before they took the vote. Juanita's story has never been investigated or litigated. However, now that a nominee for Supreme Court, the second by Trump, has been accused, more and more politicians and voices on the left are calling for FBI investigations. This, obviously, would be difficult since the FBI does not investigate sexual assault crimes. In fact, what we have been told is that the hearing was planned to proceed to a vote as scheduled until Republican Senator Jeff Flake declared he would not vote for Kavanaugh until the accuser had been heard. This put Grassley in a tough position. Either he could go through with the special hearing, or he could try to find some unlikely administrative workaround the Senate rules. We are now told that Grassley is pushing through all of this so that he can secure the vote of Flake in the committee and secure the votes of moderate Republicans on the Senate floor.
But this has been the plan all along. The moment Justice Anthony Kennedy gave the word that he was ready to resign, leftist protesters joined Bernie Sanders and others outside the Supreme Court, denouncing Judge Kavanaugh and shouting about women's rights. But Kavanaugh wasn't the only one they were prepared to attack. From the get-go, the left was ready to go after every single one of President Trump's picks for the Supreme Court. And now, one of former President Bill Clinton's war room directors is also helping behind the scenes. Liberal activist Ricky Seidman has not only worked for decades to take down conservative politicians, but she was also front and center in convincing Anita Hill to go public with her case against Justice Clarence Thomas back in 1991. But in a conference call with Democrat leaders in July, Ricky was recorded detailing a strategy to take down Trump's pick, whom she freely admits would otherwise be easily confirmed by the Senate. Just days after this call, Christine Ford released her letter, and it found its way to Senator Dianne Feinstein. For Democrats, this isn't about proving whether Kavanaugh is guilty or innocent. The people condemning him are the same people who defended Bill Clinton when he was accused of sexual harassment. Because for the left, this entire debacle is actually about abortion. Kavanaugh poses a potential threat to Roe v. Wade, and for the left, that's tantamount to heresy. They're taking no chances on this, and watching the women wildly screaming and shouting during Kavanaugh's confirmation is proof they're willing to fight this by any means necessary. So let's lay out the evidence then. One woman has come forward with a hazy memory and blames Kavanaugh for assaulting her at a party decades ago. But she can't remember exactly when. She can't remember where it happened. She can't remember who was there, and she never reported any of this to the authorities in the last 36 years. Convenient then that it should come out a week before Kavanaugh is confirmed. So what do we know then? Well, every single witness named by Ford has sided with Kavanaugh. Mark Judge, the only other eyewitness, according to Ford, called the accusations absolutely nuts, and he says he never saw Kavanaugh act that way. Two others named by Ford, including her own friend, say they have no idea what she's talking about and don't remember the incident at all. Can one woman's hazy memory from decades ago be enough proof to invalidate a lifetime of testimonies from everyone else? For Democrats, it seems like it can. Because as Senator Mazie Hirono explains, this isn't going to be determined by a court of law, but by the court of public opinion.
Look, we're not in a court of law. We're actually in a court of credibility at this point. And without having the FBI report or some semblance of trying to get corroboration, we are left with the credibility of the two witnesses.
That's setting a pretty terrifying precedent. The law of our country is taking a back seat to public opinion. The Bill of Rights may as well not exist. Kavanaugh has been found guilty until proven innocent, and that means the Bill of Rights won't protect you either, because the burden of proof has been shifted from the accuser to the accused. And that's not how the law in America works, but that's the precedent that Democrats are fighting for. As Americans, we owe it to ourselves, our country, and our justice system to put politics aside and support the candidate who best fits the job, no matter what party he represents.